Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I'm here today to start a new how-to series or tutorials, I suppose. I really would like them to be craft along with me in the same way that Roxy Creations does and Gail. And I've tried to do those and deleted them because I'm actually rubbish at it. I'm not very fast when I craft. I spend an inordinate amount of time trying to decide between, you know, a grey button, a brown button, and what order they go in, and all of that sort of thing. So what I've decided to do, some time ago I put some of my tags up on YouTube and people seem to like them. So I thought we'd do some tag tutorials, tag along with me, maybe I'll call it. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll have seen that I've been doing some quite elaborate tags, quite full on, lots of bits added to them. I'll put my Instagram underneath so that you can go and have a look at those if you'd like to. And I will, I think, do some of those as tutorials as well, but I'm going to start simply and we're going to have a go at this one today. I probably will do it reasonably slowly, and I probably won't do the stitching on camera, but I will show you my little machine I have before, and I have made some preparations. The other reason I can't do craft along with me is because I can't talk and craft. It just doesn't happen. So anyway, so this is what we're starting off with for this one. So I've got a piece of card that measures 3 inches by 5 3/4, and that's going to be the base for our tag. I have this template which I made for myself. I think it was Gail actually that I saw do this. What I used to do was snip that off, turn it over, put it on the other side and snip it off, but this is so much easier. It's less fiddly. So that's our tag, and then we're going to cover it, and I've got some old dictionary paper. When I make, I'm using glue stick as well to put these on. When I make these tags, I don't often have a plan ahead of time. I have usually something that inspires me, and that might be somebody else's work from Pinterest. You know, it might be something as simple as seeing somebody put 2 pieces of paper together like this on a tag, or just, it's really hard to say, any old thing really. Anyway, so I've stuck that over halfway across, and I want this to be less than a half. I want it to be about a third, and I wanted to cover this line, so I'm going to tear approximately here, but I like, I don't want the white edge. Depending on which way you tear, you get the white edge. So we'll do that down there. I'm going to ink this little bit. I'd like to try and explain why I do things and what choices I make, and why. I nearly always ink the inside edges because I just think it looks better. It just finishes it off. So I think that simply is the reason for that. I'm not worrying too much about the edges because I am going to stitch this. And I only want it just to be over this line, so let's put it about there. Have a quick look on the back to make sure we've got it more or less straight. Should be fine. Okay. So that's our basic tag, and I'm going to trim. Never worry about things hanging over the edge. It always looks wrong. and the balance never looks right, and then when you snip off your excess, as you'll see in a minute, everything improves dramatically, as a rule. I don't always get things right the first time. So there you can see that that's quite an effective background. I'm going to ink the edges. I'm using Walnut Stain Distress ink, just the ordinary Distress. It's not the whatchamacallit, it's just the old-fashioned Distress ink. Oh, what's this new one called? And then what I'm going to do before I decorate, I'm going to stitch round, use a straight stitch to go around the edge of this, and I'm going to use a creamy colour. I don't want it too obvious. The rubbish out of the way. And I'm also going to stitch round this. This is a vintage cigarette card. It's an orchid, and it was one of the first ones I picked out the box, but it does go, this paper I just had sitting on my desk, which is why I chose it. And then the colours toned in with this card. What I'm going to do as well, before I stitch round the card, I'm going to just use a bit of glue stick to hold this piece of lace in place, like so. And then when I stitch round, it'll catch that in, and then we can put that on before we add the trim on the bottom. So that's what I'm going to go away and do. Stitch round the edges of the tag, stitch round this cigarette card with the lace attached, all in straight stitch. I will be using my mini sewing machine. I think you may have seen this one before. It's the John Lewis. This is my purple one. I have a yellow one as well. They're actually quite reasonable on not YouTube, on eBay. So I'll be back shortly with the rest of this. So I've done the stitching around those. This is going to get glued on now. You could have stitched this directly on, and then there would have been stitches through the back of that. Sometimes I do that, sometimes I don't. So I'm using, I've actually picked up Fabri-Tac for this, and mine is a bit gloopy at the moment. So that's going on there, just above halfway and at a slight angle. And then I've got this old lace and a bit more of this just to trim the bottom here before I put the buttons on. So I'm going to again just use a smidgen of the Fabri-Tac to put that on there. Smooth that down a bit. I'm going to use a zigzag stitch across this as well, but just in case I don't catch it all, the Fabri-Tac will hold it in place. So already I'm concentrating and my words aren't coming out very well, which is why I don't do craft alongs. Okay, so I will trim that a little bit, and then I'm going to use these buttons as a trim, and I'll show you how I finish off and stitch those on in a minute. The other thing I wanted to say was about colours. I do try really hard to tone my colours. Either tone them, match them, or contrast them. So, and I use a colour wheel quite a lot, even though I do know the opposites. I often double check. So if I wanted to use contrast for this one, we're looking at this peachy colour here, I would choose a lightish blue, a bluebelly sort of blue. And I might have a look at that. If I can find something that does a contrast version of this, I'll make one and show you the difference. So what I'm going to do next, and I will again do this off camera, I'm going to zigzag just across the top here so that we've got a bit more texture with the stitching, and I'm going to sew the buttons on. I'll do 2 and then I'll come back and show you the third one, and then we'll finish off the top and this one will be done. Thank you for watching. Okay, so I'm back to show you how I sew the buttons on. Got a 4 hole button here, so I go with my thread. I want the tie to be on the top, so I go down through the first hole. I'm just poking a hole down that one, up through the second, down the opposite one. I'm using 6-stranded embroidery floss for this, and then back up through the next one to it. So that's down through the first hole, up through the one next to it, down across, and then up the next one, and just tie that off like so. I usually use what we used to call it a reef knot in the Girl Guides. So it's right over left and under, left over right and under. And that gives you quite a secure knot. So that's our little embellishment on there. And then I'm just going to put an eyelet in here. So I'm using my Crop-A-Dile. And centrally, you could mark this with a pencil if you're not comfortable eyeballing it. So my little hole, and then my eyelet. I like putting a metal grommet or eyelet in. I think it finishes it off nicely. So that goes in like that, and then I've got this sari silk, which with this one tones in with the colours. And for this particular tag, obviously there's all different ways you can tie these, but I'm going to pull it through so that it's pretty much equal length, and I'm going to tie it in a bow. So that's like that. Some people are really good at tying bows and get beautiful, beautiful bows. I'm not so good, but they seem to turn out okay. And to be honest, you can fiddle with them for ages. That's not too bad. And then I'm just going to snip off these a little bit shorter and at an angle. And that's our finished tag. You could add a charm here on a little ball pin. I did a contrast one. We were talking earlier on about the opposite colour on the blue wheel, on the colour wheel. So blue is opposite to orange. So I've used a softish blue, same background, but blue flower, blue bow, and instead of the lace down here, I've used the same lace here and on the bottom, and then I've just squiggled a bit of sari silk on there, and I will show you in another video how I put those on. So that's our 3 simple tags for our first tag along with me, and I'll see you all again soon, hopefully. Thank you.